Awesome. We're joined today with Traver Boehm, not Trevor, Traver Boehm of the Man and Civilized Movement. I know, I think I emailed your assistant and I said, like, Trevor? She's like, actually, it's Traver. I'm like, oh, my bad. Sorry. You are the founder and leader of the Man and Civilized Movement. You've done a number of TED Talks, written a number of books, and most interesting thing to me, you spent like 2 months in a dark room by yourself.
I did 49 days.
Was 49 days the second time or the first? That was the second time.
It was the
Plus
second
the
time.
first time would be like close to 2 months.
Yeah,
It's a little
77
over 2
days in
months.
total.
It's insane. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Interesting. I'm curious to talk all about that.
sure.
How you doing today, first off?
Doing great, thank you. It's the
Awesome.
first day of fall here in Boulder. It's like I'm not a fan of winter, Michael, but I love fall, even though I know it's like it's leading to the thing I don't like.
Just prepping yourself, just enjoying it now. I grew up in New York, and I know distinctly, like, that first day you step outside, you just feel the wind, the air. You're like, oh fuck!
It's
Like
coming.
2 months from now, it's gonna suck. I already know it.
What part of New York are you from?
Long Island,
Oh, right on.
Suffolk
Okay,
County.
okay. I grew up in Connecticut,
Oh,
and
nice.
I spent 2 years in Long Island. I had a buddy, God bless him. You'll get this. He works in finance, and I was in between divorce and whatever and life, and he's like, "So where are you going to stay during this period?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm going to drive back to Colorado." I was in Connecticut at the time. He's like, "Well, I have a house in Southampton that I don't really use,
Hmm.
and if you want to just live at for a while." And I was like,
Okay.
"That sounds lovely."
Yeah. Why not?
I show up to this thing and was like, "Oh, you have a compound. You have I have a house. It's 800 square feet."
Yeah. As soon as you say Southampton, it's like, oh, he's doing well for himself. All right. Well, tying us back into the men's stuff, there's a million and one different stats I can probably pull out of my ass between divorce rates skyrocketing, male suicide rate jumping, relationships falling apart, and there's a million different angles and reasons as to why it's happening. I'm curious to get your take on what is happening with just the modern state of men and masculinity. We'll start from there.
I want you to imagine that there's two or three guys in the front of that stage with their arms out and they're blocking the way, telling everybody behind them, "You're about to get pushed off a cliff." And behind them is all of male society. And they're squished up against these guys, going, "No, no, 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 no. If we do this, we'll fall off a cliff." And society, expectations, consciousness, emotionality, relationality are behind that group of men, pushing them even more and more and more and more and more forward. And what they don't realize,
Mm.
the guys up front, is we're not going to fall off a cliff. We actually are being asked to step into a different level of consciousness that feels like it's going to be falling off a cliff because it's so different from anything else that we've experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Now, 18 inches below the stage is a relational life, is a conscious life, is an emotional intelligent life, is a non-addicted life. It's a life where we get to speak about our pain and about suffering, and we get to actually be connected to the land, to our hearts, to our souls, to each other. So it's almost the promised land. But there's a fear of going there, Michael, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
deep fear. There's a lot of societal expectations that are confusing at the moment. And does that image make sense that, like, we're being pushed and pushed and pushed into something which would be really good for us, but the guys up front are also, I could say, have like past trauma, fear of abandonment, fear of vulnerability. That's what's
Yeah.
blocking the front, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
And it's a lot of it is just and I try to take all this from a more scientific angle to explain to guys what's going on. Because I think I personally, when it's like, it's your fear of, your childhood, I'm like, what the? And I was like, oh, okay, your hippocampus is on fire. Oh, okay, that makes more sense. Okay,
Hmm.
gotcha. But a lot of it is just uncertainty for a lot of men, and it's like the nervous system just generally, unless you have a healthy relationship with uncertainty, a lot of men are just a lot of people in general, but men especially, if you have a poor relationship with handling stepping into the unknown, you're gonna just
It's the
run like
unknown, brother.
hell.
It
Yeah.
is the unknown. We do not deal well with the unknown. And I will say there's most men have some evidence that being more open, being more expressive, being more, let's use the word vulnerable, being more emotionally available has gotten them wrecked at some point. And so even if it happened when they were in their teenage years, guys in their 50s are like, no, 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 no. I remember seventh grade. And I told that girl I really
Yep.
liked it, and
Yep.
she kicked me in the shin and ran away. And I'm not going through that again. And you're like, but that was 38 years ago. You're like, lesson learned, brother. Fool me once.
Can't fool me twice. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing, and it's interesting. I think it's almost like paradoxical in a way for some men that the way to living a more fulfilling life is to voluntarily let yourself be exposed to the emotions that you're hiding or not experiencing. And they're even the case of I talk to guys who are just like you can't remember where you put your keys down, but you remember exactly what that girl said to you in seventh grade like 30 years ago. Why? Because putting your keys down is not an emotional experience, but getting your heart broken, that will leave an indent. But at the same time, the first time you kissed a girl, the first time someone told you, like a girl told you they loved you, or first time you saw your child being born, whatever, those are just heavy, heavy, heavy emotions flooding through your system, which is why you have the memory and such a powerful experience around it. But it's just like, why can't I take the good and get rid of the bad? Like, it's just not how life works. And the more you run from one, the more you run from both.
I also will say, Michael, we are at a unique juncture. I think the masculine question societally has been very confusing over the last, say, 10 years. When I first started Man Uncivilized, it was in the middle of Me Too. And
Mm.
men were getting, for good reason, a lot of guys were getting annihilated. And a lot of guys who hadn't done anything wrong were hiding, thinking, like, okay, I can't even be in the relational game. And then we went through COVID and we went through kind of the psychopathy of everything masculine's bad, everything masculine is toxic, everything, men bad, men bad, men bad. And now we've come out almost on the other side of shit, we need men. We need the strength. We want it back. But there's a lot of carryover from guys going, well, wait, I'm being asked to step up and lead in my relationship. But 3 years ago, I was told if I even speak up about anything, I'm toxic.
Mhm.
So I find, and maybe you could speak to this scientifically, when men are confused, we often don't do anything. That's our stance is like, well, if I go left, I'll get punched. If I go right, I'll get punched. So I'll sit right here. And the punches are imaginary, but yet men won't take a step forward or won't move. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I remember years and years ago when I was in my teens, I had a therapist who would refer to me, remind me a lot that life is just paper dragons. It's scary at first, but once you take a swing, it just crumbles in no time. And that I think is just a lot to do with, again, there's like a nervous system thing where you're basically, the more you shy away from catastrophizing, overloading, it's if every single day you just see guys who are getting knocked down left and right, your base assumption is like, oh, this is going to happen to me too. Rather than realizing like, oh, like what's the worst that can actually happen? Probably a lot less than what's going to actually happen. And are you capable of handling it? Should it happen? But a lot of this is just training in a nutshell. A lot of this is just like trying to be like trying to take away outcomes from certain experiences. Like assuming you're like in the case of, if a guy wants like, I want to get a girlfriend, but I'm bad at talking to girls. Or I don't know what I'm doing. Like, okay, like have you tried talking to girls? No, I freak out every time. Okay, can you stand within proximity of a woman and not say anything? Like, yeah, but I do, but I get nervous. Like, all right, can you handle that though? Yes, okay, go do that. Start with that and then come back to me. And once that's easy, next step, I'm going to have to like just ask for her name and ask for the time.
That's for
And
the
that
time.
might be too much. And then you start with that. And then you just start
Yeah.
stacking these little micro wins. But a
Yeah.
lot of times, a lot of these guys, as I know you work with Dewey Freeman, a lot of these men are just stuck developmentally. Their nervous system is stuck at a younger point in life.
For
That's
sure.
such that when they experience these moments in life, we're like, oh, the woman's getting mad at me. Like, what's happening? Well, it's reminding me when my mom used to get mad at me as a kid, or my dad used to yell at me. And you don't realize it's not your brain doesn't tell you, hey, this is reminding of you when you're 5 years old. It's just a feeling that just shuts everything down.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And I've had the same conversation. Actually, on that stage, I said, I believe that most men are stuck developmentally under the age of 12. And that's
Yeah,
without
I agree
acute
with that.
trauma. That's not with abuse or anything. It's just kind of where they're stuck. And I've had that same conversation, Michael, with guys like, go ask for the time and realize that you're nervous that she may say, ooh, get away from me. And she's nervous that you may kill her. So recognize that there's a bunch of shit going on. And if you do ask for the time and she just walks away, did you die? Did you literally fall on the floor and were they doing CPR? No, you were okay. And you'll be okay. So go ask for the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's reminding me of a I guess part of this ties back to, generational advice and generational wisdom. And what we're going through now is we're kind of seeing the after effects of consecutive generations of just we've lost male initiation, we've lost a lot of healthy exposure at a young age to progressively increasing levels of stress. You're not going to take like a 5-year-old and say, go talk to an audience of 20,000 people. If they're terrible public speaking, they're afraid. But like, all right, practice in front of the mirror, practice in front of your stuffed animals. And then we're going to stand in the doorway and watch you. And then, me and mom and your siblings are going to watch you. And then we're going to bring the neighbors up. And it's just gradually inch by inch by inch. And so much of this was me growing up. I was locked in my parents' basement for like the first like 24 years of my life. And partly because they were just like, well, we're happy. We know where you are. You're safe. And then when I had to kind of like step outside and go, oh God, this is fucking terrifying out here. Holy shit. But things that a 24-year-old, 25-year-old should have been able to just handle easily. And yeah, like that question of, are you going to die? And what was funny was it reminded me of this like generational wisdom and whatnot. There was, and you said like, women are terrified they're going to get killed. The men are terrified they're going to get rejected. It was this like comedy skit online. It was a guy, it was like asking his father, like, I'm taking a girl on a date, but I don't know where to take her or what to do with her. So what should I do? And he's like, well, here's the trick. Just like have her guess where she's going, and whatever the guess is, just take her and do that thing, whatever
Yeah.
it is. I don't know if you've seen this one. And the kidnapping. Are you kidnapping me? Like, yes. I guess this is where we're going.
Man.
But yeah, it is a large degree. It's catastrophizing for men. But yeah, in fairness, there is no shortage of stories of women who have been sexually assaulted or abused or attacked or killed over that line. And there is a difficult like evolutionary balancing act that goes on for both men and women. It's like the men want to be tough, but not so tough they're impenetrable and they have no emotions. And the women want them to protect them, but also be soft enough, but also be assertive, but not too. And it's like this how to draw that fine line between the two. And too often, I think what we find guys doing are just overcorrecting in one direction or the other.
Yeah. I remember asking a group of women in a workshop once, how many of you want a more vulnerable man? And every hand went up. And I was like, cool. What if he cries every 2 hours? And they were like, don't want that. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. All of you just said you want a more vulnerable man. So what if he cries once a week? What if he cries more than you do or gets more emotional than you do? And there was all of this variance in the answers. Now imagine trying to be a man who has one been assaulted, shamed, something when he has expressed emotion at some point in his life. Most likely as a young kid, he got punched when he cried or was called a name or was ostracized from the group or even that, and that may have happened even at home, not just out with his friend group. And now he runs into
Mm-hmm.
you who says, hey, I want a more vulnerable man. And his logical male brain is like, cool, 32% more logical, 63% more logical. Where are we at here? And if that changes throughout your cycle throughout the month, this man, if he's trying to track and keep up with you, he's shit out of luck, as opposed to simply saying, this is who I am, this is what's real for me, this is what's open and available for me right now. If this doesn't work for you, you're not the right relationship for me.
Mm-hmm.
But that speaks to a different piece for men where we are the ones who are so often disqualified out of relationship that men will have a very hard time saying, well, shit, I'm going to disqualify this person because she doesn't fit with my natural attunement. And that's a whole nother piece for guys of going, well,
Mm.
wait, it took me 1,000 swipes on Tinder, 14 coffee dates, 3 second dates, and I finally am with this one person after all of that work. She doesn't like how vulnerable I am or invulnerable. I will change because I'm not going through that process again. And now he's given over his power and he's given over relationality and he's going to get left or he's going to, or he's going to be miserable throughout the course of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I have empathy for guys who are really trying to fit a mold that is constantly changing because that is what they've most often been taught.
Yeah, and it's You mentioned a swiping thing. It's tough because I think there is a certain degree of like a nervous system attunement that goes on when you're with somebody for a long period of time that we don't really get as much nowadays because so much of modern dating has become technologized, I guess is the word you could say. It's become a lot of the usual patterns and habits and things. Like people would just like, what do you want to do for this weekend? Go to a barbecue or a party, or go out to a bar, or go out to some public event, because we don't have social media yet. We don't have Netflix. We don't have video games. We don't have infinite degrees of variability in pornography. We don't have any of that shit. The only interesting thing to do is go out be amongst people doing something. Book club, exercise club, CrossFit, whatever it is. And now within that, you get a lot of opportunities to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to be amongst maybe a certain friend group or certain people. And over time, you kind of get to observe each other from a distance. And then slowly the gap closes and someone connects you to somebody else and thinks you're a good fit. And they're friends with this person, friends with that person. Also, like the level of trust increases just from the get go. And then as you grow together, into your 20s and 30s, you've had time to see them at different variabilities of their life. Women throughout their cycle, men throughout as their growth periods go, stages and whatnot. To the point that you kind of like, oh, I can read you without really thinking about it. I know what you're feeling. I can kind of like attune myself and you can attune yourself to what we need in the moment. We can speak without speaking.
Mm.
When you throw that all out the window and say, okay, you're going to just sit inside and play video games and watch porn all day and, Netflix and whatnot and swipe like crazy through your through social media and dating apps, you miss out on so much of that time that not only would you get to practice with yourself, practice being rejected, practice approaching a girl, practice having a conversation, learning to read. Did that land well? Was that the wrong thing to say? Did I piss her off? Was she? And then like those moments where you're like, oh God, she was flirting with me and I totally missed it. Things like that. You get better and better at reading
Yeah,
these nonverbal cues.
I've got some stories about that. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, like that. Yeah, epic stories with that. Yeah. But it's like a part of your body language that you just don't learn how to read, how to identify, and just keeping yourself grounded enough because you've had enough life experience amongst other people that, yeah, like I remember recently when I was younger, I was a textbook nice guy. Like, thank
Mm,
God for Dr. Glover's work
mm,
and your work and everyone else that we're doing. But like, I was super duper nice guy, went through my own stuff. I started working with Connor Beaton for a while, did some of his programs, read your book, love that book,
thank you.
and all this stuff. And finally kind of like got to a point where I'm 1,000 times better than I ever was. And most recently, after I moved from New York to Georgia, I went on a couple of dates when I moved here. And I remember a couple times I remember like we're just literally on a park bench, just chatting, getting to know each other, feeling each other out. And I remember a couple times sitting there, like having a moment, like an hour and a half, 2 hours into talking, where I was like, I haven't checked in with myself for like the last hour and a half,
Mm-hmm.
but like she's completely calm and the vibe is great. And it was a moment of realizing, like, holy crap, like I'm no longer checking every single word and every single facial feature and every single muscle, like like constantly just paranoid, like, please like me, please like me, please like me. And now it's just like, no, I'm here. I know who I am. Your choice if you want to be in my presence or not. And 9 out of 10 times, they're just like, this is hot as fuck. This is
Right.
awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you for like being grounded and secure in yourself. And a lot of guys are just not getting that experience and practice nowadays to get to that point. And then they're misattributing certain attraction cues. Like, well, I don't have six pack. I don't have 7-figure income. I'm not over 6 feet tall. Like I don't have like a this and that. And it's just like, there are women that want that, but comparatively small compared to most other women just saying like, I just want you to be emotionally grounded and
Yeah.
present
Yeah.
and like have a vision and a purpose and be able to handle the tides when they come through.
I taught like a dating webinar like a month ago and said, "Do you guys really want to know the secret to cutting through most
I
of it?"
wasn't there, but I got the replay. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, "Go to Toastmasters, go to improv, and the third thing I would say now is like start your own podcast because you're going to have to learn to speak in front of a group, be funny when you don't think you're funny, and also realize that sometimes you're not funny and that's okay. And then also learn how to actually hold a conversation or pick up when there's a lull in the conversation or when the question didn't land well or if there's confusion or just learn to be in your body. Well, I have hundreds. I mean, how many hours do you think you have behind a microphone? Like hundreds,
Enough.
if not
Yeah.
thousands. And so I'll sit in front of anybody on the planet and just be like, so tell me about you. That's a fascinating thing. What? Tell me more about that. Wait, I caught this one piece. What about that? Like, oh, you're so lucky. You're good at conversation. Like, I'm not lucky at all. I had nice guy written across my forehead for 39 years. And it took this and practice and practice and practice. But I will tell you, I said the same thing to that group, that there is nothing sexier than presence. And
Mm.
yet you've heard that thousands and thousands of times, and yet we'll go, hey, I've heard that there's nothing sexier than presence. I'm like, cool, what are you doing? I'm trying to buy a Bugatti. Why are you trying to buy a Bugatti? Because that's what women want. But we just said there's nothing sexier. Well, I heard there's nothing sexier than presence in a Bugatti. No, no, no. No point did I say Bugatti. Just learn to be in your body and know how to hold a conversation, and you will do quite well in this world.
Yeah. Yeah. The Bugatti thing is interesting then because it's a perceived path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest part is like the way your brain operates is that it's trying to move you through life down the paths of least resistance. And it seems like, okay, what do I want? I want to get laid. What's one path? Learn to be present. How do I do that? It's a bit ambiguous. You got to try it out. You got to see what it feels. You can't really specify exactly. There's tons and tons of books out there and people that will talk and teach about it. And it's a feeling you have to have. Once you feel it, you have it, but you can't explain it exactly. What's option two? Just buy a fucking Bugatti. Okay. All right. Okay, I could save up my money for a while and just buy a car. That would be way the fuck easier than whatever the hell explaining understanding this is all about. But it is one of those things like in life when people say like you won't understand it till you feel it, but you can't feel it until you try doing things. And then when you notice yourself, like I said before, when I was on those dates, those moments when I was like, holy shit, I've been on like confident autopilot for the past like hour and a half, 2 hours, and I've been able to just then create this emotional space in the conversation and presence with her that I'm not bombarding her with questions. I'm pulling out bits and pieces of information, and I can keep the conversation flowing for like hours at a time if we have to. So there's constantly things I can pull on somewhere in the threads there. Or if there's gaps and we decide we're just not talking for like a 15-20 second gap, that it's okay. You don't have to fill the silence.
Right. It's okay. Yeah, it's a superpower. I truly tell guys like it's a superpower. And I don't know if you I read this. I think I wrote this actually in Man Uncivilized. I remember a date in New York where I walked in and just said, I'm going to try to be as relaxed, as physically relaxed as possible, and I want to catch something in her story. There's something she's going to tell me that's about this core of a story. And this woman started sweating and was like, and literally asked, like, "Hey, what are you doing to me?" And I remember saying to her, like, I'm probably the first man who's you've sat across that doesn't want anything from you. And that's fucking up your nervous system.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I had a buddy of mine who him and I think his girlfriend years ago. He was telling me it was so funny. He was kind of confused. He was because he himself is also like emotionally jacked up, and he just doesn't realize it doesn't hasn't want to work on it. But he's talking about his girlfriend at the time and how like it was I guess one of the first times it wasn't just sex. It was like presence and intimacy and like love and like, oh, it's okay, we're here, we're together. It's not just like let's just jump on top of each other and have fun. It was that plus everything else that he was able to do with her, and she was just hysterical crying afterwards because like nobody had ever been to like that like had been that touching and tender and nurturing. And she was just like, how are you not freaked? She was like, how are you not freaking out right now? What's how you frightened? He's like, it's
Yeah.
okay, it's okay. I'm like, I'm here for you. Da, 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 da. You just let it out. And it was ironic because he told me this. I'm like, what you did to her, somebody needs to do for you
Mm-hmm.
really badly. But that idea of just presence and being grounded, and basically creating enough space for somebody else to let them just relax. And so many people are just like, I don't remember the last time I got to relax
Right.
or what relaxation felt like. And in this case, like sweating because she's like, whoa, like, I can't read. I don't have leverage on you. I can't read you. Holy shit. What
Right.
do I do?
Right.
Every other guy has come along like has, I've been able to do this, this, and this to get them to kind of buckle under the weight of me. And now you're not. It's been like 20 years since I met 30 years or never since I met a guy like that.
Never. Yeah.
And as far as I know, you don't have a Bugatti.
I know. I told the guys on that call, like, I'm under 6 feet. I have no hair. Six pack left me in my mid 50s. I do make over six figures, but I don't put that on my profiles for anything. And my life is quite full. Just literally said, I went through Toastmasters. I've been on stages. I've freaked out on stages. I know how to talk to people. I've done the experiment of standing next to someone, having a conversation, and asking, why am I flexing my stomach right now? Why am I tense? Why are my knees tight? And then relaxing my body, like having to go through a period of time when it had to be conscious of, hey, relax your body. This is a safe person. And now it's just second
Hmm.
nature. And
Yeah.
like you said, it is permission for the other person to relax. And it's almost, and we use the word energetic, but that gets put in the woo woo. They're feeling you relax around them, they will relax around you. And that is a beautiful gift to give to anybody. Gentlemen, ask yourself, have you been around a man? You're like, man, I just get to be myself around that dude. I'm totally relaxed around that. Amazing. I imagine you enjoy spending time with him.
Hmm.
I imagine you enjoy being in his presence. You don't want to date him per se or have sex with him, but isn't he lovely, for lack of a better word, to be around? You have that same opportunity. And I don't want this just to be cool. This is a parlor trick I use on women. This is a way to navigate life. When you are relaxed and grounded in your own
Hmm.
body, you are also in a very different relationship with life, with the challenges that come up, with the beauties that come up, etc. It is the way to navigate it where you get to feel and experience 50 to 60% more of your human experience than you do when you're locked up and tense and blocking things per se.
Yeah, and it's feel like it's less like woo woo. It's my personal thought around this is the fact that a lot of body language likely evolved before spoken language did. So it's
For
way,
sure.
and I don't know the exact number, but there's like how many hundreds of muscles in the face?
Right.
Like that alone tells you like this is trying to communicate so much. Not only just like, tense shoulders, relaxed body, even
Yeah.
noticing if like your heart is racing. Like you could think about pace of speech and things like that. You're picking women in particular, they're picking up on all of this information, whether they're fully conscious of what they're receiving is another story, but like subconsciously you're picking up on all that information. There was even studies showing how like we can pick up on a change in somebody's emotional cues and their facial behavior or whatnot within like 1/10 of a second. Like you won't even realize you picked up on it, but your eyes caught it,
Hmm.
and you'll just have all you'll get hit with is like a feeling, intuition. It's a feeling that just hits you out of nowhere, and you're like, I don't know. I feel like we should. This guy's in a bad mood, or something's wrong with this person. And too many people, especially guys, they're at a point where they don't even know what they're saying without saying it.
Mm.
Their body is giving off just this vibe. It's like, oh, I just got a bad vibe from you. What the hell does a bad vibe mean? It's like I'm just whatever. I'm just me, and you don't realize like no, you sound stressed, you sound anxious, you sound uptight, and you sound like you're just nervous, and it's signaling to this person something's going on in you, and you don't even know what it is. So how can they trust you?
Right. Right. Which goes back to your original sentence a couple minutes ago of just go ask for the time. That stresses you out. And truly, you can't do that without a raise in your heart rate and your nervous system getting tighter. It's going to be very difficult to speak about matters that have their own natural charge with them. I think you're beautiful. I'd like to know more about you. I'd like your phone number. There's no real risk of rejection in the time, in asking for the time. So, like you said, practice there. Practice, 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 practice. And gentlemen, go to Toastmasters, go to improv, start a podcast. It will help you immensely.
What is Toastmasters? I think I heard you mention it a couple weeks ago on the webinar, and I forgot.
Toastmasters, Michael, is like it's a worldwide organization about public speaking. And so it's kind of like the Rotary Club. It's like that level of
Mm.
participation. It's all volunteer. And you basically go, and over the course, if you want to, of 12 weeks, and this costs like $9 a year or something to be a part of. And there's groups, they're like AA, there's like a Toastmasters group everywhere. And there will be 12 speeches that you have to give. And the very first one is like, for 2 minutes, tell us about yourself. And everybody in the meeting has a role that's a speaking role. So someone may be the timekeeper. Someone may count the ums and ahs that that person makes. Someone may be a judge. And
Mm.
so basically, it's just like low barrier to entry, learning how to speak in front of people. And I've watched people stand up in front of the group and it's like, all right, cool, your talk is 2 minutes about yourself, and they literally lock down and shut down and start going into a panic response. And you feel for them. And I've seen people, go from, I went from Toastmasters to the World Championships of Speaking. It's like, hey, this is so fun. This is where I feel at home. This is where I feel natural. But a lot of people, that is a big, big, big hurdle to get over. And if you, it's also, again, a superpower. Again, business wise, dating wise, human wise, just to be able to stand in front of a group, period, and say, hey, everybody, I need your attention right now. This is what's happening. Or, excuse me, I think you're beautiful. I'd love to get your Instagram handle. Thank you. Have a great day. It's like building the foundation for everything speaking wise.
Funny, I don't know who it was recently that I saw somewhere in the news, or it was some kind of male performer as a singer or whatever. Very, I guess, effeminately dressed and looking and whatnot. But it was funny just seeing the crowds of women just going nuts over this guy on stage. And the comments were just guys like, oh, really? This is the new version of masculinity? This skinny dude who dresses all in bright, frilly colors and gyrates his hips like Elvis Presley, whatever the hell he's doing. What was funny was that below that was not recognizing like whatever he decides to dress up as, his kind of his voice, his music, whatever it is, you have to acknowledge that he's able to hold presence and hold like a room's attention. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be 1,000 people in there, but like when you walk into a room, I've heard it's referred to as like the John Wayne effect. You just walk into a room and everyone's just like, we're good. John Wayne's here. We can relax. He's good. He's got it covered. We can all just chill out a little bit. And again, you don't have to be over 6 feet. You don't have to have a 7-figure income, drive a Bugatti, all that fun stuff. There's plenty of guys who do that stuff who suck at relationships and talking to women and all that stuff. And it's so funny when you hear people like, how is this guy like, a 6-pack ripped millionaire and he just can't even get a girlfriend? It's like, it's not the same skill set. Totally different skill set. It's independent of your ability to make more money or this and that. Yeah.
I had a buddy for a number of years. His gig was helping rock stars navigate women. And people were like, "Well, wait a minute. How do these guys not know how to be with women?" He's like, "Remember high school? They were the band geeks. They were the guys like those are the guys that now are famous musicians. They made and what did they study every day, all day long? Music. That's their genius. Relationship may not be their genius. So yeah, I'm with you.
Actually, I wrote down a question, and I think you might have mentioned this in the webinar. I think it's more of a comical question, but it was like, why is the answer to men's issues to not blast our minds with consecutive ayahuasca ceremonies?
Do you want me to answer that?
Go for it. I'm curious what you got to say because I think that a lot of guys. I'm guilty of this early on in my own like journey and development. Was thinking like maybe I should go to Costa Rica and just do like 5 days of ayahuasca and it'll fix all my problems until I really like learn more of the neuroscience, the behavior, all this stuff. I'm like, oh, it's a process. You're trying to rewire something that takes time to rewire rather than just like a one and done thing. But I think too many men are looking for the quick fix. And that might be, oh, if I just got abs, oh, if I only got like, six, oh, if I got a better car, if I got, and it's just like, there's plenty of broke fat dudes who are getting way more pussy than you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and there's just something there you're not grasping that they're doing that you can learn, but it's a totally different skill set.
Yeah. I am all about the journey itself and saying to my audience, to guys I work with, to the mirror, I want to be in this for the next 40 years, whether that's jujitsu, whether that's meditation, whether that's business, whether that's writing, whether that's public speaking. And I now know I can look back a decade ago when my writing first started getting picked up and opening doors for me. And at the time, thinking like, wow, I'm a really good writer. And now, 10 years later, looking back on that and going, oh my God, I was a terrible fucking writer. But I could get people to feel things. Just like 10 years ago, I can go look back on my jujitsu matches and be like, I was great at jujitsu. And now being like, oh my God, I was athletic and strong and had a tiny inkling of understanding of jujitsu. And so I'm saying all this, especially when it comes to levels of consciousness or understanding of spirituality, that is a glacial pace that those learnings and lessons come to you. And you don't want them to come faster. Because once they integrate into your life, they have to actually reorganize every area of your life. Right? So a big drop in or a big lesson, a big insight spiritually or consciousness wise does not stay in a silo. And so what I found, if you want to speak specifically to ayahuasca, and I've done ayahuasca a couple times, but I've done it with like years in between sessions,
Hmm.
because I may get one insight from that ceremony and then go, okay, for the next 3 years, I have to integrate that insight. Not this weekend and then go back to work on Monday. Like, oh, we are all one. Okay, cool. Let me go back to my corporate job, you know, looking at spreadsheets while I've now swallowed the spiritual law that we are all one, or all things are related, or whatever it may be. So I will tell guys, like, slow down. What are you in a fucking hurry for? You sprinting to your death, right? You want to have it. You went and had an insight. Amazing. How does nature integrate things? It doesn't integrate things overnight. It integrates things slowly. And again, I want
Yeah.
to, Michael, personally, like, I love the nuance of, and I'm going to use jujitsu because it's an example in my head. I know how to sink a basic choke 10 years ago, but now I have so much nuance and feel in my body, down to
Mm.
like, where do I put my feet on the mat when I lock this choke in? And my feet aren't doing anything around the choke. But I want to get the full body. Like, where's every little energetic nuance that makes this thing undefendable? Rather than, well, I slammed it across his neck 10 years ago and I won the match, so now I'm really good at it. And we can take that with business. How much have you learned about business in a decade? I
Hmm.
can say this about writing. I can say this about sex. I can say this about relationship. I can say this about fitness. I can say this about health. Everything. That I'm in it for the long haul and have removed the hurry from my life around learning and integrating things, and that has made my life exponentially more peaceful than it was before.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of guys don't recognize that you really only have first off, yeah, repetition is number one. Number two is that your brain, your mind, your body has a certain pace at which you can integrate and learn things. And just be respectful of the pace. As long as you're consistent, that's like the biggest kicker. And it's tough because you see people who are ahead of you, 10 years ahead of you, and you're like, I want to be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you're as consistent as they are for 10 years, you can be.
And would you be able to handle it if you were there
Okay,
tomorrow?
yeah. This is why
Right.
like lotto winners blow themselves up in like the first year of winning the lottery. They have no idea how to handle that kind of money.
Guys, hear this. I've said this for years. There are support groups for people who win the lottery. Think about that. If it's the end all, if it's the
Mm,
thing that everybody wants, everybody would kill. It's like, you want to be famous? Go be famous for a weekend. I used to have to protect famous people for a living. Do not want to be famous.
mm.
That is a hell that I wouldn't put on most people. Right? And yet it's the number one goal. I want to be rich. Have you been rich? Have you dealt with the? There's a great book. I can't remember the name of it. Something around money or richness, where this guy goes through the truth of what it's like to have money. He's like, basically, some of your kids are going to be fucked up. Your friendships are going to end. You will be sued multiple times. So, like, this is the truth after studying thousands and thousands of wealthy. Yet everybody listening to this is still like, I want to wake up tomorrow a millionaire. Okay. I want to wake up a famous athlete. Okay. I want to wake up a famous actor. Okay. There is a whole other side to that equation that you don't know and you probably don't want. Just FYI.
Yeah, yeah. And I think beneath that is people saying like, what I want is the capacity to handle the challenges that life is currently throwing at me.
Truly.
My perception is that, oh, if I just had money, then I could handle this. If I just had money, then my wife would love me. If I just had money,
Right.
then my job wouldn't suck. If I just had money, then I can get a Bugatti and get a girl. All that stuff. Yeah. But ultimately, it comes down to yeah, like your nervous system's capacity to handle things, your ability to break things down to smaller pieces, your ability to stay consistent with different activities that are moving you in a particular direction, and to not fill in the space between where you are and where you want to be with shame.
Hmm. That's a biggie. That's a biggie.
Yeah, very common for a lot of guys. I'm curious if you're able to talk any about your experience in the dark.
Sure, sure. Guide me a little bit with it. It's such a massive, massive experience that
What was the initial inclination the first time? I know you did 28 days the first time. What was what sequence of events led you to decide to do that for yourself?
I was in the middle of, or very, very early on in a project I had dubbed the Year to Live project.
Hmm.
And this was immediate post divorce, immediate sale of a business that was my community, post miscarriage. So my life had fallen apart to a large degree. And I had time, I had space, and I had revenue for a year. And I said, some other events happened to guide me to this idea of what if I lived an entire year of my life as if it were my last? And I wrote and blogged and created content around that adventure. So I'm January of that adventure, Michael, and I'm at my very first men's workshop with Robert Masters. Do you know Robert Masters?
Familiar.
He wrote the book To Be a Man. He's written a number of books. He's an older gentleman and very, very powerful teacher, extraordinary author. And there were about 6 of us in a 5-day container going deep. He's like a shadow work guy. And there was a man there who had terminal cirrhosis and was doing some some shadow work to actually to walk into his death in a different capacity. And we were eating lunch. This is like a side conversation. And he overheard me talking about my frame for the year. And in between bites of his sandwich goes, if you really want to experience death without dying, you have to do a dark retreat.
Hmm.
I was like, what the fuck's a dark retreat? And he explained that he had done 180 days, not consecutively, but cumulatively, in pitch black darkness. And here's the hook. He was like, well, I did 49 days, 49, a couple. He's like, actually, the first time wasn't 49 days. It should have been, but they pulled me out on day 45. And I was like, why did they pull you out? And again, like I'm a civilian. I'm a layperson to all of this. And he goes, well, I was bleeding from my eyes and my nose and I think my ears. And I was like, okay, tell me more. Why was that happening, sir? And he goes, the Tibetans, this was in Tibet, the Tibetans told me I was so deep in meditation that I experienced, and he like made his face go all wide. He was experienced demons. And I was like, I'm from Connecticut. Did you experience demons? And he goes, nah, I think I had food poisoning. So I was like coughing and puking so much. And I was like, oh, motherfucker. So I went home that night. I Googled it. There wasn't a lot out there, but there was a place in Guatemala at an ashram. And they said, cool, yeah, we'd love to have you. Let's open a dialogue. And so that was truly my naive, like not knowing what it was, heard a guy say it, it felt like it landed impetus. And I'll add to that. What was really underneath that wasn't, do I want to experience death without dying? It was this challenge. I didn't know the word initiation at the time, but this initiation will require a skill set that I don't know if I have.
Hmm.
I'm an ex-professional fighter. I'm a public speaker. I'm a writer. At the time, I was a strength and conditioning coach. None of these talents and skills or whatever's are worth a damn being locked in a pitch black room for a month by myself. I had a meditation practice that I knew would be helpful, but what are you going to do for the other 23 hours a day? So it was really, I wanted to know what are the skills and talents I may not have, or I may not know I have. And then 2, can I survive this thing? There's a bit of just like, oh shit, will I tap out? Will I quit? And 3, I can say now, Michael, there was a pull from the room and the darkness itself.
Mm-hmm.
This is my medicine. This is where I go to do my deepest work. This is my life's adventure. I wrote a book about it. Like, this is a big deal to me. But at the time, I just knew I wanted to do it. And now I can say at the time, I had to do it.
Yeah, there's something powerful to the idea that when you have nowhere to run from your problems, how do you move through them? How do you
Yeah,
digest them? How do you actually face them? Like, what would you do? Yeah.
I'll add to that. I'm not naturally masochistic, but I did have this weird spiritual thought. Like, I'm on rock bottom. I'm at the fucking low of the low. What is there below that? Because I'm on the rock bottom, low at the low, when I still have access to Whole Foods, Netflix, and my friends. but I wasn't trying to hurt myself more.
Yeah.
I wanted to really see, and one, I didn't want to be back on rock bottom ever again. So I thought, while I'm here, I might as well use this. And I was working at the time with a Jungian analyst who was kind of helping me see, well, you're down here, there's gems here, there's lessons here, there's insights here that you can't get when you're not on rock bottom. And so I thought, cool, let me lock myself in this room and see what comes of it.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got a society and just a world today where there's way too many distractions in the palm of your hand to stop you from just taking the time necessary to move through these things, whatever it may be. Like finding purpose, finding direction, grieving, letting go
Yeah,
of past aches and whatnot, getting in touch with yourself, communicating with yourself to the point that it's become like it's become like a whole industry in itself to start to like getting back in touch with yourself, getting connected with yourself. The irony is that it's right out there. Like I'm looking at my window right now, and it's just like there's like an entire like forest back there, probably full of like snakes and poisonous crap. I'm not going to walk through anytime soon, but just thinking about, like, I think it's funny. How, a good example is like when people go to sleep at night, they need white noise. They need to, but it's like you need
mm,
to synthetically create what nature would have already had for you had you been asleep, living as a caveman millions of years ago or thousands of years ago. Or even just like going for a walk by yourself, just away from your phone, away from technology, away from all this stuff. And how much you just, that's what I notice all the time. When I go for a walk by myself outside, all my thoughts just start like, everything starts coming to me. Like, I wish I had a pen and paper right now to write things down. But then when I'm sitting here in front of my computer or watching like, YouTube, and I've never had any profound thoughts ever. And so the idea that you basically decided to just go into a dark room and be like, I'm literally cutting everything off for 28
I
days
think
and
so.
then 49 days after that.
Yeah. And there's also information and distraction just in sight.
Hmm.
And if you remember in the 80s or 90s, sitting in a dentist's office or the DMV pre phone, you still watched people or read the flyers on the walls or grabbed a magazine or did something that when sight is completely removed, it's the last layer of distraction. So you're forced to go inward and allowed to go inward to a depth that you can't go when sight can immediately pull you back out of it. If a bird flies by the window or I decide to look at the design of the stucco on the wall in front of me, that will pull me
Yeah.
away from a depth that the darkness allows.
What was the inclination for round two?
It was multifaceted, Michael. I had this idea 2 or 3 years ago. I want to start my 49th year with 49 days in darkness.
Mm.
49 days is the prescribed, like that's as long as you can do it. And that's the standard 7 weeks of the Buddhist practice. And I was playing with that idea, and I have or had a cousin who was my older brother. I grew up in a house of all women. And I had a cousin named Chris who was the dude I looked up to. My age, wife and kids, moved to Hollywood, was like working in the film industry. And I found out 2 years ago that he hung himself. And it
Mm.
was the next morning. And I was like, fuck, what do I do with all of this anger and grief and upset and tumultuousness? And I was just sitting there kind of stunned and crying and enraged. And it was like, woof, you got to go back in the dark.
Mm.
And you got to write about the last time because I've been sitting on that book for
Mm.
8, 9 years. And I remember thinking I dedicated the book to him and said, to Chris, for whom the darkness was too bright. He couldn't find the gems, and I just got chills. It took him, right? He didn't have a relationship with it. And I thought, how many people out there who've grown up in a love and light society, good vibes only, if there's a problem, take a pill for it, culture, need to learn that there's an entity that has just as much, if not more, information for us than joy, laughter, satisfaction, and the heavens. And so that was the double whammy on that morning where I went, okay, I have been called back to the dark. And so I went.
Think about doing my own darkness retreat at some point now. Sounds interesting. Down the
But
road,
I'm
maybe.
happy to connect you with the group I did it with.
Awesome. We're wrapping up on time here. If you had one piece of advice to a guy who's struggling out there right now, and like one simple takeaway, just how to start moving through their problems, how to find support, what would you recommend for them?
I tell guys, man, pain is the greatest teacher we don't want to learn from. And pain for men is the one leader we don't want to follow. And I get that's poetic and that's sort of higher level, but there's a reason for that pain. There's fuel in that pain. There's opportunity in that pain. You get to use that fucking pain. But you can't run from it. You can't hide from it. So what if you actually stopped and sat in it? And then also made the decision that you don't have to, yes, you're going to be in it alone, but the experience of what you do with it can be relational. I despise the memes that are like, become a ghost, disappear for 6 months, do 1,000 push-ups a day and work on your marketing and come back a god. And you're like, oh man, can't this dude just like do all that shit and hang out with his friends and like have a girlfriend at the same time and go to Whole Foods? Like, do we all have to disappear? And I know I disappeared for 7 weeks, but I would tell guys like, don't struggle alone. That is a lie. Don't be the lone wolf. The day my ex-wife walked out, I was on the phone to a therapist, and then I was on the phone to my two best friends, and then I joined a men's group and was like, "Hey guys, I'm in the shit, and I don't want to do this alone, and I don't think I can do this alone." And what do you know? I was surrounded by guys who had either lived through the same thing, were going through something similar, or were just there for me in very, very hard times. So one, I wanted to use the pain for something bigger than I am. I knew it was an initiation to the next level. So fellas listening to this, like, you don't go from point A to point B without pain. You didn't do it in the gym. You don't do it on the jiu-jitsu mat. You don't do it at any place in your life. So start to ask yourself, where could this pain be guiding me? And what if I don't have to go through it alone? I think that's my core message to men.
Yeah. What I'd like to say is, like, maybe nobody's coming to help you, but that doesn't mean they won't come if you ask.
You do not have, yeah. Please ask. Please ask. And I've seen it now thousands and thousands of times since running Uncivilized, that the permission just for guys, like, you reach out to someone, you also give them permission to reach out.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in men's groups where the first guy was like, hey guys, I'm having a shit day. And then what do you know, throughout the next 3 weeks, it's like, hey guys, I'm also having a shit day. Hey guys, I'm also struggling. And no one was going to say anything until that first guy did. And maybe the advice he gets doesn't solve the problem, but at least he knows people care. And that's a big life preserver as you're drowning.
Yeah. Yeah. And the men's group that I did a high-end men's group last year, and I think I was the first one in the group to cry at another man's pain. And like, it was like 10 guys, and everybody else in the group privately messaged me afterward, like, holy shit, thank you. Like, thank you for giving me permission to like feel feelings in front of other dudes because you did it first. Like, thank you for that. Yeah. And then everyone just like dominoes started going down bit by bit of their own stuff, and everyone just walked away 10 times better.
Yeah, but, permission, man.
Yeah. This has been fantastic, though. Thank you so much. I know you got to get going. Where can we find your content?
You can go to manuncivilized.com or find me on Instagram, Traver Boehm, TraverBoehm. And if you want to read my new book, it's just out, 28 Days in Darkness. You can find that on Amazon, and you'll get the full story of that first dark retreat. I'm getting great reviews from people who are like, I was so anxious reading this. I was so nervous reading it. So it's good storytelling too.
Awesome. Traver, thank you so much, man. Appreciate this.
Appreciate you. Take care.